Good afternoon. I want to welcome all of you to today's session on using AI and big data to improve repossession results. My name is Mike Levison, and I'm the CEO of Resolvion. For those of you that are not familiar with us, we're one of the leading repossession management and skip tracing firms in the country. We offer a wide range of services, including forwarding, skip to repo, LPR management, impound management, remarketing, and we even have a division that specializes in heavy equipment recovery. I'm joined today by my colleague Scott Darling, who is Resolvion's Chief Operating Officer. Scott oversees really all of our pre and post repossession operations. He's got a long background in call center management and has a particular affinity for using deep analytics to drive decision making. And this type of analytics is an area where, frankly, the repo industry has lagged. I think there are many reasons for that. Some of it relating to the difficulty in aggregating the kind of data that's necessary, but some of it's also a function of sort of the low on the totem pole status that a lot of repo departments inside lending operations have when it comes to getting IT resources. But as a repossession management company, we have our own system of record, our own data set, and so we're able to overcome a lot of these challenges. So because of that, we have been spending a lot of time looking more deeply at our data, and the findings have been pretty surprising. And it's really validated the power that this level of analytics can have on something as basic as repoing a car. So Scott's going to share some of the insights that we've gained from in particular, taking a more granular look at the performance of our repossession agents within the network. But before jumping into all that, so with that, I'll say let's get started, and I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hey, folks, this is Scott Darling. One other thing before I jump in. Is in your little box on the right, if you'd like to actually download the document under the handouts, there's a PDF version of the slides I'll be sharing for you if you want to either look at them now or download them before the panel ends. So anyway, thanks, Mike, and welcome, everyone. I hope that you, your families, and your team members are staying safe and relatively sane. We're all aware of the challenges we've faced over the past few weeks and will likely face into the foreseeable future. The presentation that I'll be sharing today was developed in more quote-unquote normal times, but it strikes me that reviewing this material at this particular point may be even more valuable. We're facing some unprecedented issues in our industry, and we'll all need to identify ways to work smarter as we move back towards whatever our new normal becomes. Here are the topics I plan to cover today. As Mike mentioned, I'd like to make this as interactive as possible, so please ask your questions or raise your hand if you've got something to ask or add. So we'll talk about the use of recovery curves to help identify when strategies may need to be changed up. I'll also share a couple of options for boosting recovery performance that we are using, and some of our lenders are. I'll discuss an illustrative example of how forwarder performance can vary across geography and illustrate how lenders can be more surgical in how you assign cases to your forwarders. Just as there are differences in forwarder performance, I'll point out a real example within Resolvion where we dug deeper into agent performance and identified a huge difference for a lender. I'll touch on the concept of scoring models. Many of you may be using these to help segment your assignments, and how these can help ensure that the right resources are working the right assignments at the right time. And then finally, we'll talk a bit about the economic impact of using data and information to optimize repossession efforts. So before we get going, though, I've got a quick poll for you. Let's make sure I get this done right. And give me 1 second here. So the first poll, hopefully you can see this, is what method do you most often use to do your tiering assignments for forwarders? And I've given you sort of three simple options. One could be based on your days placed. One could be based on performance or triggers. And then a third option is we assign cases and let them ride until they're either recovered or closed during sort of the normal path. And share this with all of you. So what you're saying is that a little less than half of you use days placed as the trigger for assigning. So you assign the cases for a certain period of time and then sort of move them to the next forwarder, the next tier, or whatever. It looks like a little over 40% of you use triggers, which may involve some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, or some other sort of performance that causes you to make a change. Any questions or comments about this?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
You bet.
All right, good. I know I had some issues yesterday, but we actually use a combination of both days placed and performance triggers. It's really case by case, account by account on what happens.
Okay. Hey, thank you. I think we see quite a bit of that, so thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
I think the last guy just answered the questions. It's a combination of days placed and performance triggers. We look
Right.
at how often the agents are running the assignment, how often we're getting updates as promised through our contract with you guys. And we base it on that. First placement, second placement. We typically try to have the vehicle first placement out for about 14 to 15 days. Then we want it flipped automatically to LPR or skip tracing based on what you guys see on your end. Because we can only go by what you guys update.
Right.
So we look forward to your information helping us see which direction we will go in next. And that's all
Good.
I have for you.
Right. Thank you, Daryl. Okay. So the next few slides are going to illustrate how understanding recovery performance can inform your tiering strategy. So the graphs on the next two pages will show, let me just toggle to those. So the graphs on these pages are going to show cumulative recovery rates for a batch of assignments. So for those of you not familiar with this type of graph, the x-axis shows cumulative recovery rate for a batch of assignments, and the y-axis shows number of days since placement for any assignment. So as an example here, the royal blue line represents the cumulative recovery rate by days since placement for all cases assigned in April. Each colored line represents a month of assignments, and we track performance of each case back to the month in which it was assigned, and then we can create recovery curves that show cumulative performance for each month, which is sort of what you see here on the left. So on this slide, the example is all pre-charge-off assignments for one of our lenders. The two circles on this graph point out a couple of areas that we need to track. So this investigate and adjust circle to the left alerts us that a batch of assignments is performing below what we have historically seen for this lender, and we should dig in to determine what's going on. It could be that we're down a resource, need to rotate the assignment to get some fresh eyes on the case, or something else, for instance, bad weather or a lender moratorium. The second circle identifies where performance tends to top out. At this point, there isn't anything unusual going on. It's just time to change strategy. So understanding the specific point in time and expected cumulative repossession rate of a batch of assignments allows us to prepare for something new. So then this is the a pre-charge-off example using a real lender. Slide 10 shows similar recovery curves for post-charge-off assignments. So post-charge-off accounts tend to be assigned for longer durations, but the same principles apply. We need to watch recovery curves to look for variance. So, here on the left, you see our August batch starting to dip fairly strongly at about day 24. So we need to look into that and adjust it. We also need to look at historical performance. Again, this is where all these curves to identify when cumulative recovery rates start to top out. So based on what we see, we can formulate changes in placement strategy and work strategy to help boost recovery rates for those assignments. Any questions about the concept of recovery curves and how we can shine a light on opportunities to research or boost performance? Hopefully this makes sense for folks.
Scott, one point I would make or add is that it's really important, I think, for lenders to understand this, because it really informs your strategy for how long you leave cases with vendors. Some lenders have a policy of leaving cases open for a long time, but clearly after a relatively short period of time, you get diminishing returns by leaving it.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it isn't in my notes, Mike. If you look at I just toggle back to the pre-charge-off curves. Are you guys hearing feedback? Okay, I think we're good. We also have spoken with lenders who work with lenders whose placement time may be significantly shorter than what this curve would indicate. So, you might have 2 weeks or 15 days or even 20 days where our experience would say keeping the assignment where it is, you're going to continue to yield increased, although sort of to some extent declining performance, but it's we believe better for you to hold those just a little bit longer and then apply some new strategy that I'll talk about in a minute, rather than pulling the assignment and moving it somewhere else at day 14 or day 20, if you will. Okay. So slides 11 and 12, these slides are going to provide info on ways to boost recovery performance based on what the data is telling you. So in this slide, we introduced the concept of flipping. So some of you already do this, right? The idea is to flip an assignment from forwarding to deep skip when recovery performance starts to flatten. So in this graph, again, it's a real lender example. At about day 30, we start to see the curve flatten a little bit. And so this would be the time where we want to drop in or apply a new strategy. In this case, flipping to skip. While the cost may be a couple of $100, the recovery rates will also pop based on more talent and time spent finding the vehicle. So what we found is generally flipping to skip, first off, is based on historical recovery curves. So it's generally forecastable. We know about when we will want to do that. And we'd hope to see something like a 15 to 20% lift in repo rate through flipping assignments to skip. Another example to share on this slide is a tool that can be considered, and that is adding LPR or DRN when recoveries start to flatten. So adding this functionality supplements your rep and recovery agent performance. It doesn't change the strategy per se, and it's easier to accomplish than steps required to do a flip to skip. We can just turn it on within our platform, and it can happen at any time. So if we see any strange changes in performance, we can turn that on at with your permission. The repo rate is generally a bit lower than if you did flip to skip because it's really more opportunistic. It's got to do with our agents sort of out and about and doing scans and looking for live hits. But the incremental cost is also a little bit lower. So this section really is about coming up with a couple of different ways to boost performance within your current assignment strategy. Any questions or other comments about boosting performance? I have another poll for you. Let me spin this one up in a second here. And this poll is, do you use geographic performance when assigning work to forwarders? So, a couple of options that we included for your consideration. Yes, we use geography at the state level. Yes, we use it at a more granular level. Or no, we do assignments independent of any sort of geographic analysis that we do. Close this. So the results are reasonably spread out. So you've got 25% saying yes, we do allocations at the state level, 35% are doing it at a more granular level, and 40% do it or do not use sort of geographic analysis for assignments. I'm curious. I've heard anecdotally for those who don't allocate based on geographic performance, are there some system or other analytic limitations, or what would prevent you from being a little bit more granular?
At the state level, since we're located in Georgia, we have a more ideal concept of the agents that are running in Georgia. We have a list of their production. I typically keep that list, and I see what their status is, what rates their repossession cars at, and we have more cars in Georgia than any other state. So that's why we're at the state level with that. Outside of Georgia, we do use other people's insight to see if we should go with this company and see if Resolvion is using this company in say a state like California, where we don't have many cars out in California.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? While we're waiting, one of the things I've heard anecdotally from some of our lenders is doing anything more granular than the state level sort of introduces both some platform complexities depending on what your sort of native platform is, and also it becomes a little bit of a challenge if you have multiple portfolios or tiers and trying to keep sort of everything relatively balanced. Some of the folks that we deal with will do state level allocation, but only for certain states. But there's a little bit less, as far as we can tell, around allocation at, say, the 3-digit zip or something else. So, good. Thank you. All right. So, the next few slides. Hold on a second. The next few slides are going to shift focus from an internal review of performance to assigning strategies for both forwarders from the lens of a lender and agents from the lens of either a lender or a forwarder. What we found is that the details matter. Now, slides 14 and 15, the two slides I'm going to show, share a hypothetical situation related to how lenders could assign cases to forwarders based on a deeper dive. So the slide you're looking at is hypothetical, as we don't have good sense as to how other forwarders perform. But in this scenario, lender A allocates assignments to its top 10 states based on historical performance by its forwarders. So as an example, forwarder 4 has the highest recovery rate for all lender A forwarders in Florida. Forwarder 2 has the highest recovery rate in California, etc. So for lender A, assignments are made at the state level without consideration for differences in performance based on a more granular geography. And that means that they may not be digging deep enough to optimize their assignment strategy. Right? This is a good start, but it's not as far as you could go. So let's take it to the next level here. This slide takes the assignment strategy, into the next range of analysis. So using the Florida example from slide 14, which is that top couple of rows, we see that lender A's top performer in Florida is forwarder 4, which we saw last slide. However, when you break down performance at the 3-digit zip level and by assignment type for that lender, we see some material swings in performance across forwarders. So in this example, while forwarder 4 shows strong performance in several geographies, so in pre-charge-off, zips 331, 334, and 327, and in post-charge-off, zips 322, 327, and 328, forwarder 4 is not the best choice for all geographies. So the takeaway here is the opportunity is to use data and analysis to further segment the assignments so that the best forwarder for a specific assignment type in a specific zip is given the case. So it's taking it a couple levels lower than sort of state level performance to see that, for instance, forwarder 3 for this lender should really be getting the post-charge-off assignments in, say, zip 330. So questions about sort of lender assignment strategy for forwarders as I've sort of laid it out? Okay. So again, in the same vein, but moving from a lender focus on forwarder selection to a forwarder focus or a lender focus, if you're going direct, on agent selection, we've got a couple more slides coming up that provide a real-life example for Resolvion. So these illustrate actual data and our experience when figuring out how to assign cases to our agents. So this slide, this is where the case study starts. The target is a large Midwestern city, and we reviewed performance for 6 of our largest agents and 3 of our largest lenders. The left-hand table on this slide shows recovery performance for agents for all lenders and all locations in the broader geographic area. So put another way, if we're a forwarder and we're looking at statewide performance for an agent or a broader geography, the left table is what we would see. So based on what I would call this all-up analysis, agent C is the clear winner with agent A distant second. But when reviewing agent level performance for only the specific city, so this is a large 3-digit zip, and by assignment type, again, still for all lenders, we experience some variance. So while agent C still seems to be strong overall, its performance for pre-charge-off assignments is relatively higher. And agent F, while relatively low at the state level, sees decent improved performance in the pre-charge-off area for this 3-digit zip. So again, going down to the next level, looking at pre and post in a specific 3-digit zip, you start to see some stratification. Now look at even more granularity, splitting out the performance by lender, paper type, and 3-digit zip, and we see even further separation performance. Now we can see that while agent C is strong for lender 2 in both pre and post charge-off, agent A has highest repo rates for pre-charge-off for lender 1 and lender 2. Additionally, agent D has strong recovery rates for lender 3 in pre-charge-off, as does agent F. So the takeaways for me here are driving down to the client, geography, placement, agent level can result in more optimal assignments of work. And it creates more value for lenders. We're giving your work to the agent in a geography based on the paper type that we believe is most likely to deliver a repossession for that assignment. Another takeaway is that breaking down data to this level helps us identify specific pockets where improvement is needed. So in this example, we see that overall performance for lender 1, especially in the post-charge-off area, is low and needs further attention. So what that allows a good forwarder to do is work with their sort of vendor management team and agents to either sort of understand why performance is low there, sort of do some other investing in specific agents who are performing well, or even identifying a strong agent in another geography and asking them to add a lot in an area where we're not performing as well as we'd like for a specific lender. This, as I got into this was really insightful, and it's a challenge because there's a lot of data to sift through, but it really helps a strong forwarder identify that there are real differences in performance by agents for any number of reasons, within a specific zip code and whether it's a pre or post charge-off assignment. So, any questions or comments about the use of this detailed performance analysis to really optimize our selection strategies?
Scott, I would just add that without this level of analysis, you really end up making decisions on faulty data. It's sort of a false positive. You think you're giving it to your best agent, but in reality, for that particular type of assignment in that location, it could actually be your worst agent you're giving it to.
Exactly. And we're, as part of this analysis, then what we've done is dug into in our building and implementing a new and improved, sort of a game-changing agent sort of scoring and selection model, so that these things, when we did them a couple months ago, were really difficult because there's a lot of data. But if you set it up the right way and you create the right tables, then it makes it a lot easier for us, or for any good forwarder, to more quickly pick the best agent for that specific lender and paper type and geography. Okay. Moving right along. So shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to briefly touch on the concept of scoring models. So these tools help lenders forecast recoverability of any single assignment based on a handful of key inputs. So you can see, debtor information, vehicle information, assignment type or tier, forwarder information. So, which agent was involved and how was it recovered? There's a handful of other, especially for lenders, either customer information or vehicle information that can help you identify and rank order the probability of recovery for your portfolio of vehicles. Having more predictive information on assignments allows a forwarder to adjust staffing levels and apply more aggressive changes in tactics and strategy earlier in the process. So this isn't to say that all assignments aren't worked, but the concept I use is called variable speed. And so, based on any information that a lender could share with us, or that we could develop based on our own experience, then what we can do is adjust staffing so we can have smaller or larger queue size based on expected recovery rates. We can move harder paper to more skilled team members. So it's basically put the right paper in the hands of the right resource. It also allows us to change some of our tactics, right? So we may do rotation earlier, we may do deeper skip. We may, without sort of reaching back out to the client because we know it's important to do, we may attach sort of LPR for some of these assignments to increase the probability of recovery, based on what we originally thought. I didn't put an audience poll question here, but I am curious, maybe show of hands or comments, as to how many of you are actively using scoring models to determine what work to move to your forwarders. And
it wasn't a comment. You said raise your hands if you use data analysis. I'm just raising my hand.
Excellent. Are you using it for like scoring models, or how are you using it, Daryl?
We're using it based on production, like you guys do with the agents that you hire. We use about 4 vendors, and we base it on the production of from month to month, how well they're updating us on information that we can use to help them, because we both in this together. You help us with the information, we're helping you with finding information also when we skip. The scoring model is based on how many days it was out before the recovery happened. Did we have to flip it to LPR? Did we have to flip it to skip? It's a number of outlets. Outside of this, we can talk more. I know I've been talking in depth with Claudia, and Craig has been talking with Claudia in what we expect when we send you guys assignments.
Excellent, thank you. Other comments?
There's a variety of models. We've done the state level, and we're getting more granular than that. Something we're just implemented beyond. I mean, we've used LPR for a while, but we're going to now use DRS address risk scoring at the level where things aren't even out for repo yet. So we've put it in place in our portfolio that we haven't assigned out to see how well our addresses are. Do we need to skip sooner? Can we leave it a little longer before we assign it out? Or is maybe our home address not accurate because the car keeps getting scanned 30 miles away, and now we're knowing it at the 60-day range, say, instead of a higher delinquent range. And with that, it's all coming down to when we do need to get the car, how fast can we get the car? I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to rebuild cars, but that's not going to happen, right? So we're trying to have the most information, be the best prepared as we can, so when it does go to an agent, the agent has the highest likelihood to pick it up quickly. With the LPR aspect, we have some orders who turn LPR on at day 1, others who do day 7. It just kind of varies.
Okay, thank you. So while we're waiting for another comment, a couple of comments here that I think are important, especially in sort of current times. You know, as we get back into whatever our new normal is, you know, we believe that, and for those of you that were participating in Mike's webinar yesterday, that we're going to see a reduction in our agent footprint. Folks are going to, those that come back are going to come back slowly, and some may not come back at all. And the implication there for a lender and for a forwarder is you may not have as many resources chasing your assignments as you used to, which means you may want to be more selective in the assignments that you place out there, and either to drive up your recovery rate, you use something like a scoring model to say, this is more likely to be recovered, so let's make sure we get all those eyes on that. Or as Mike was saying yesterday, maybe it's from a business owner standpoint, it certainly is about recovery rate, but it's really also about how much of the assets that are delinquent as a percentage of dollars are you recovering. So it's almost your yield. So it may be that you start thinking about placement of vehicles based on the value to you as a lender, right? So a recovery is a recovery is a recovery, but if one of them is going to get you $25,000 in value back more quickly and the other is $5,000, then that, especially in the times we're going to get back into, may pretty heavily influence which assignments you want to put out with a forwarder or an agent. And Mike, I didn't know if you had any other comments about that from your talk yesterday.
Not too much beyond what you said. We do think that there will be a real capacity challenge in the industry when things start to normalize. Depending on how long this goes on, the moratoriums go on, we expect that between 20 and 40% of the repossession agencies in this country could go away. And you combine that with what is likely to be a pretty big spike in demand once things open back up, that's going to create some real imbalance between the demand and the capacity that's available. And that's going to have implications for everybody. You're going to want to make sure that everybody's focusing on the cases, the assignments that have the highest value to the lender, because resources will be scarce, and it won't make a lot of sense to view all repossessions as equal, which is the way it has historically been viewed by the industry.
Thanks, Mike. Well, let's move on, and then if there are additional questions, it looks like we'll have a little bit of time at the end, which is great. So you've talked a little bit about different strategies and why it's important to pick your best forwarder and us to pick our best agents. So this slide provides a simple analysis that highlights the benefits of being more data and analysis driven. So the left-hand table makes assumptions about various drivers of cost and value. So for this case, we assume that the cost of moving an assignment from Tier 1 to Tier 2, so we haven't recovered it, we've got to move it to Tier 2, is $75. The average auction value of the vehicle is $8,000. There's about a 20% annual depreciation rate, which equates to about 0.06% per day, or about $4.80 per day based on an auction value of $8,000. If we're not able to recover it through agent or forwarder selection during tier 1, then we've got to pull it and reassign it. And that there's additional days that are going to happen until we recover in sort of the tier 2 space. So our high level estimate of cost associated with not getting it done quickly is about $288 on an $8,000 vehicle. So we use that to plug into opportunity costs, and this is really where your decisions can lead to sort of better economic performance. So let's say that we have a lender that assigns cases sort of an equal percentage. So each, the best and the worst forwarder each get 2,000 assignments. But the recovery rate, while pretty close, is different enough. So, you get a 20% recovery rate versus 17%, which means I'm going to get more recoveries from your best forwarders and less from the others. Now, if you multiply the number of recoveries that is reduced because you didn't pick your best forwarder and they didn't pick their best agent, that's going to cost you, the additional depreciation cost is going to be about $17,000, and the total opportunity cost is going to be, just over $250,000 a year. So, these numbers are illustrative, but it basically says if we can pick something up quicker, and which almost defines it as with lower cost, then that's going to translate directly to benefits for all of you. So the last slide is really a summary of approaches that lenders should consider. We think you should consider holding your forwarders accountable. You should expect your forwarders to optimize their labor internally to focus on driving maximized performance, right? Making sure that forwarders are deploying the right strategies and people to the right cases. So that becomes sort of the labor optimization piece of this. You should also be expecting us to use robust analysis to select the best agents for each assignment. So moving from a state level or just a generic peanut butter approach to, the client agent geography sort of pairing. And then finally, you should expect that we are always looking for ways to improve performance through, scoring models in this case, or any other ways that provide you with a competitive advantage. Like using what I would say, the three pieces of analysis are data, which I would call the what, which turns into information, which I would call the so what, which turns into action, which I call the now what. So you really want to have someone that you can work with that can move quickly from the what to the now what, because that's where value gets created. those are all my prepared remarks. We've got some time for questions or comments or whatever you like. So I'd open up to the floor, and Dee, maybe you can help facilitate, please.
Scott, thank you. Hopefully everybody found this to be interesting and useful. Also want to thank all of you who attended today. We're certainly available for deeper discussion on this topic if you'd like to at some point in the future. We really do believe that this kind of data analytics is going to be critical to the future because of some of the capacity issues that I referenced before, but also the need for the industry to operate more efficiently. At the end of the day, data is going to drive a lot of that.
And maybe to add to that, I've had the opportunity to meet several of you, but I'm still fairly new in the role. I've been with Resolvion for less than a year. If you all have any comments or questions, or just want to connect with me sort of one-on-one, you can find me at scott.darling@resolvion.com. There are a few of you in the audience that I think we've done some deep dives. So we've looked at our performance by state versus other forwarders, and at a deep dive level with different agents and a 3-digit zip. So we would love to make this as practical for you as we can, both to help you with your decisioning, but also develop a relationship between your firm and ours. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Be safe.